have a mansion. In the post-apocalyptic world by Morningstar LL. Chapter 171, The Preparation Before Returning to the Apocalypse. The same afternoon, Lingyu Technology announced a statement. The shareholders passed the restructuring proposal. Ling Zhongtian was removed from the board, the company was officially renamed Shenfeng Entertainment, and the company's stock would remain suspended until the completion of its asset restructuring. The news spread to all the shareholders like a long-due storm finally passing a draft-dried land, and they began cheering. The people that cut their loss were depressed by their decision of not having confidence in the company. All in all, these people thought of Jiang Chen as Jesus Christ. Future Technology and 361 Corporation both possessed shares. One has been valued at over $1 billion by Wall Street analysts at its inception, while one was already listed on Nasdaq with a market cap of over $10 billion. It left too many people too much room for the imagination. Graciously, Jiang Chen made headline again. The young billionaire once again enters people's vision. The charming smile, the calm attitude, attracting the heart of countless girls. Okay, they really don't care about Jiang Chen's looks. Being famous didn't seem to create too much of a hassle in his life. Different from celebrities in the entertainment industry, most of his fans were very rational. The people that want to marry into wealthy would not flap towards him like bees. It would be too unclassy. They would often pretend to be a frail and innocent girl, encountering him under his building, and accidentally starting a "rich CEO fell in love with me" drama. But unfortunately, Jiang Chen was known to not go to work, and the community he lived in was also somewhere random people could not enter. Their plan ultimately would fail. The irrational fans used the security team in the community to send him love letters and attached a duck face selfie inside. Jiang Chen at first was looking forward to reading the letters to see how the beauties have been conquered by his charm, and how they have fallen under his genes. Don't question, Jiang Chen never said he didn't like to hear flattering words. But he was quickly bored. All the love letters had the same content, revolving around, "I want to give you a baby," and "let's hook up." The directness even made Jiang Chen, who was proud of his lack of boundaries, shy. He gave the rest of letters to Aisha and told the security to throw all letters of this kind into the garbage. After telling them not to bother him with it, he left this in the back of his mind. Han was indeed a deep and profound language. What Jiang Chen meant by taking care of them was to throw them out, but Aisha interpreted as examination. Obviously misunderstanding Jiang Chen's intention, she had the thought of picking another wife for her husband as she patiently read through a few love letters. As a qualified wife, she will not be jealous towards husband's other partners, she will obediently share with her and take care of him. Take back what she said, she also gave up. As a qualified wife, instincts told her that these women have impure motives. These love letter finally didn't escape the fate of the paper shredder. It was already November, and based on Miss Sun Jiao's description, the apocalypse must be covered in thick snow. But Wanghai City was still sunny and mild. Even deep into the fall, it still didn't feel cold at all. To be honest, Jiang Chen not only once had the thought of not going back to the other side. Since he already was a winner in his life here. Luxurious mansion, top-end car, and beautiful girls. Everything he ever dreamt of was achieved. But on the other side, there was only danger. At this moment, he relaxingly lied beside his private pool on top of Aisha's legs and was getting his ears cleaned out for him. The side of his face felt the softness of her legs. Her fragrance lingered around his nose. The tip of her hair occasionally brushed across his face and tingled with his heart. The soft and gentle breathing beside his ear. It's done now. A delighted smile appeared on Aisha's face as she gently blew on Jiang Chen's ear and put away the ear pick. Done already? A bit more. Because it was so comfortable, it was the odd time Jiang Chen was demanding. But, it's already clean. It would hurt you if I do more, Aisha said faintly with a blushed face. No problem. Please continue. Facing her husband's unreasonable demand, Aisha's face burned as she began debating. Although it was the duty of a qualified wife to satisfy the husband's demand, if she continued, it would damage her husband's ear. In this case, she must think of a compromising plan. Could I lick it? She suppressed the shyness in her heart as she whispered into Jiang Chen's ear. Jiang Chen, in the sluggish mood, clearly was drawn into it. Seeing her husband was interested, Aisha's face became a deeper shade of red. She looked at the cleaned-out ear as she stuck her tongue out and buried her head in it. The soft tongue, along with the warm breath, approached slowly. But an untimely phone call interrupted this intimate atmosphere. Aisha looked away with a blushed face. Licking someone's ear was too embarrassing for her. Jiang Chen couldn't pretend to be lazy anymore as he got up to pick up the phone. Hello? Jiang Chen picked up with an unpleased tone. Voice sounds angry. Did I annoy you? Lu Yao said coyly. You ruined my good time, Jiang Chen said fiercely. Aisha, standing on the side, heard it as her red face turned brighter. She lowered her head, as her mind went elsewhere. Do you need me to compensate you? Lu Yao said energetically. Ahem, what do you mean? Oh no, he was hard. Jiang Chen turned, so his back was facing Aisha. But what he didn't expect was that the blushed Aisha got closer and stood in front of him. A shy but tender smile surfaced on her face as she slowly kneeled down. A pair of smooth hands self-assertedly reached for his clothes. Oh dash. Why are you making a weird sound? Lu Yao asked curiously. Ahem, nothing. If you have something to tell me, be quick. Jiang Chen was not in the most ideal state. It's nothing special. A lot of entertainment companies have sent me invitations to star in movies. Since Jiang Chen accepted Lu Yao as his mistress, Jiang Chen paid the penalty of 1 million for breach of contract. After that, Lu Yao had been staying at home with nothing to do. Why did you suddenly got famous? Because of you, Lu Yao said in a sweet voice. Me? He gazed at the pair of eyes below him as he experienced mental and physical sensation at the same time. Jiang Chen took a deep breath as he almost didn't manage to hold on. Yes, you have a Weibo account, right? Other than the default followers, you only followed me, therefore. Lu Yao's voice sounded frail as if she was afraid Jiang Chen would get angry. So, she carefully said, therefore people thought there was something between us. Therefore. See. Ah. No, that's fine, I don't care about this news. Jiang Chen squeezed out a few words between his teeth as his hand gently rubbed Aisha's luscious hair. She felt the gentleness on her hair as her blue eyes narrowed happily. But then, it was even harder for Jiang Chen to resist. That's great. I was worried that you would not like me doing that anymore because of this. Lu Yao was delighted. Nope. Can I go act in a film then? No problem. No kissing scene dash, since she was now his mistress, Lu Yao was afraid Jiang Chen would be jealous. Okay. And also, the film producer wants to acquire your investment. Lu Yao carefully asked. Granted. Love you lots, mwah. When are we going to Panu Island for vacation? I heard it's summer there all year round. Are you listening? Yes. No, Jiang Chen couldn't hold on any longer. Wait, Lu Yao held the phone as her eyes turned suspicious. She suddenly covered her mouth realizing something. Ah. You must be doing something naughty. And, no. Wait, no, this sound would not be wrong. You must, she sensed the voice was off. Fine. Seeing the gentleness in her eyes, Jiang Chen was too joyful to lie to his body any longer. If it were not for the people that he couldn't let go of, he probably wouldn't go back. The next morning, Jiang Chen made a trip to Xinlong food processing plant. Following his instructions, Zheng Hongjie cleaned out a new warehouse to store the surplus goods. The goods inside would also not be registered on anything. Although he didn't know the boss' intention, he didn't ask. But he was not here to acquire food. He already prepared enough food to pass through the winter. He directly found Zheng Hongjie and ordered him to arrange the export, and then increase production as soon as possible. The deepwater port at Panu Islands had already been completed, the next step of island conquering mission could begin. After taking care of the miscellaneous tasks, Jiang Chen headed back to the mansion and started to time travel. Chapter 172, Winter is Coming. Rather than saying winter was coming, it was more fitting to say winter was here. His vision was covered by the monochrome silver as the entire pool was filled with snow. A thick layer of snow covered the mansion, and the edges of the roof were decorated with daunting icicles. Like a castle standing in the northern kingdom. Solemn. Proud. But Jiang Chen was not in the mood to enjoy the atmosphere of his mansion. He only wore a thin t-shirt. The second he stepped into the apocalypse, he began to shiver uncontrollably. This weather is too king cold. Even with his body conditioned strength by the genetic vaccine, he couldn't withstand it anymore. Jiang Chen covered his arms with his hand as he dashed into the mansion from the backyard. The last time he was here, he started his time travel beside the pool because he was lazy, but he sure suffered on his way back. Different from the extreme conditions outside, the mansion was as warm as spring. The broken wall and window had been long repaired by Sun Jiao, and after a series of modifications and improvements, as long as the window was closed, the mansion would not be bothered by the severe wind chills outside. But before he even gained his footing in the mansion, Sun Jiao, who also ran toward him, pushed him onto the sofa. You are finally back. This girl's voice certainly had a hidden bitterness to it. A lot happened over there. Jiang Chen said apologetically. Although it was not entirely accurate, he did become lazy after having too much fun. Jiang Chen seemed to have sensed something, but she didn't point it out. Her beautiful eyes dreamily gazed into his. Jiang Chen looked away as he was shy from the passionate gaze, but he discovered Sun Jiao was holding something in her hand. What is this? This is. Out of nowhere, Sun Jiao's face immediately turned red as there was a sense of panic to her voice. Towel? Jiang Chen asked with uncertainty. It's a scarf. Fool. After seeing her proud work being slandered as a towel, Miss Sun Jiao was immediately enraged. The furious Sun Jiao gave a solid punch in Jiang Chen's chest, and then she pulled out the scarf, forcefully putting it around his neck out of shame. Cough cough. Are you trying to strangle me? Although the softness was continually squeezing onto him because of the violent action, the suffocating feeling around his neck cancelled the sensation. Stop moving, just resist a bit longer. Sun Jiao with a blushed face said fiercely. Wait, why do I have to resist against wearing a scarf dash? You are so talkative. After a while, the scarf was finally put around Jiang Chen's neck. Sun Jiao got up from Jiang Chen's body with a blushed face as she looked away. Looks pretty good. It would be even better if you give it to me normally. Especially because this is not how you wear a scarf. Sun Jiao, with a troubled smile, pulled the scarf around his neck. This girl was clearly confused about the difference between a rope and scarf. The pure black scarf was without any pattern. With a beginner's skill, it would be too difficult to put any patterns on it. But being able to knit the scarf was an accomplishment nonetheless. Hearing Jiang Chen's praise, Sun Jiao's eyes immediately lit up. As to the ridicule of method of tying the scarf, she selectively ignored the sentence. Really? Haha, this is what I am saying. How could I mess up on a scarf? With a red face, and scratching the back of her head, kindness was written all over her face. So why did you think about knitting a scarf? After putting on the scarf properly, Jiang Chen asked nonchalantly. Because? Sun Jiao's mind drifted again. Her face changed to a bright red hue. In the magazines before the war, it said, girlfriends should knit scarves for their boyfriend. Therefore, it is not a requirement, or the better way to put it, the girl that is willing to knit a scarf for her boyfriend would be a rare species. Jiang Chen let out a sigh as she smiled. Jiang Chen was quite touched by her. What do you mean a rare species? Sun Jiao gave Jiang Chen a dirty look. It means adorable, Jiang Chen rushed to explain. Adorable? Her expression suddenly softened, and her bright eyes looked around shyly. At this time, Jiang Chen suddenly noticed Yao Yao standing on top of the stairs. This small loli pouted her lips as the cute eyes stared straight at the scarf around his neck. Oh, too devious. As if she heard the noise in the living room, Lin Lin walked in from the side door with her pure white hair. Still not hesitant to badmouth people. PSH, it's only a dumb devil couple. Why would you guys display affection in the living room? Go close the door and do what you did dashda. But before she finished, the words were stuck in her throat. A grim sight instantly locked onto her vision as she was forced to swallow her unfinished sentence. Ahem. I think as the owner of the mansion, I need to do something now, Jiang Chen mustered to himself. That's right. For example, building a wooden shack outside for her. A devil-like smile spread on Sun Jiao's face as she also enjoyed the feeling of bullying Lin Lin. In the end, she still could not be defiant. You are all bullying me. With tears, Lin Lin escaped back to her room/lab with a sad expression. This narcissistic and bad-tempered girl always instantly forgets to stand her ground. Seeing Lin Lin's fleeting figure, a smile appeared on Jiang Chen's face. I wonder if she finished her task yet. I'll pick a time to take a look. There was no fireplace in the future. Except for the poorest survivors, no one would use fire to generate heat. Jiang Chen's mansion obviously didn't have that either. The reason the place was so warm was due to the heating grids placed within the wall. This device was extremely convenient, and it would provide heat as long as it was connected to electricity. The heat-resistant electric wire would not be burned by EMPs. Therefore, the heating grid became one of the few electronic devices that was not destroyed by the nuclear blast. In the top-floor office, Jiang Chen and Sun Jiao stood together and gazed into the distance. The thick snowflakes twirled in the north wind as they raided through every corner of the world. The ice shards that occasionally smashed on the window played a whimpering noise as it crashed into the frozen window. Even if he was just looking, he could still feel the coldness that could freeze one's soul. Such heavy snowfall. After a while, Jiang Chen could only produce 4 words while looking outside. This is not too bad. Usually, it would start snowing in October. In regards to the snow, Sun Jiao's expression was rather calm. It was rumored that when the war just ended, the entire world was covered by nuclear winter. It was the same cruel scene every day. I wonder how did the people outside of the survival shelters survive? Outside of their walls, apartments built with concrete were built for residents of Fishbone Base. The Fishbone Base that didn't lack money would obviously not mistreat its people. Every family was connected with heat and electricity. The life here was so much better than in the ghetto. On the empty streets, a pickup truck, modified to be a snow shoveling vehicle, was working hard to push the snow out of the base. The patrol on the wall regularly walked around to watch for any incoming danger. The white winter suit made him look like a snowman carrying a rifle. With a snowstorm this big, the mutated humans shouldn't be able to invade us. Although it certainly was inconvenient to the construction of the base, the thick snowfall gave a hint of tranquility. Speaking of mutated humans, Zhao Gang, who you sent out scouting, brought back some interesting information. Oh? Jiang Chen raised his eyebrows. There are at least 3,000 mutated humans in the 7th area. A lot of signs indicate that they are preparing war supplies. Every mutated human was a natural warrior. If there were actually 3,000 of them, even if they sent 1,000 people, it would be an unstoppable force that the Fishbone base could not resist with only a population of 200. No, it would be difficult even for the 6th Street. Hopefully this snow will bring them some trouble. Jiang Chen watched the flying snowflakes as a worried expression flashed on his face. Mutated humans are known for their cold resistance. This amount of snow will do nothing to them. We can only pray that this storm will kill more of their slaves. That is the only way that would make things difficult for them. Sun Jian's voice was stern. Slaves? Speaking of this, how did the dancers in Jia City survive under the violent force of the mutated human? Jiang Chen shook his head as he put his thoughts away. Then he asked, is that all? Also, based on Zhao Gang, when he returned from the 7th area, he encountered a group of survivors fleeing from Xinxiang town. Survivors fleeing? Jiang Chen touched his chin and thought. They originally belonged to the survivor groups in Xinxiang town, but the survivor group was wiped already. Zhao Gang brought them back. I ordered people to keep them outside of the base for now. Sun Jiao nodded before she took out a tablet to show a map to Jiang Chen. Xinxiang town is between Qingpu and 7th area. It is on the Taifu River, a way for the mutated humans to enter Wanghai City. There were around 700 survivors there, and because of the lack of mutant activity around the area as well as the lack of external threat, they lacked an organized system. They only established a simple defense outside of the town with a civilian force of 21 people. Therefore they were enslaved by the mutated humans. Hearing this, Jiang Chen guessed the outcome. That's right. Sun Jiao nodded. A force of 40 mutated humans were stationed in Xinxiang town as they established an outpost there. Based on this, they are indeed going to take the route through Xinxiang town to Wanghai City. That meant that they would go through Qingpu, not Songjiang. It was the worst outcome. Deep in Jiang Chen's heart, he hoped to avoid direct conflict with mutated humans. Even if they really arrived in Carmen Pharmaceutical and obtained the improved FEV virus, they would only torment Jia City. Jiang Chen took a deep breath as he asked in a serious tone. What about the 700 survivors? Based on the survivors who are there, because of the snow blocking the roads, they are temporarily imprisoned in Xinxiang town and have not moved yet. Hearing this, Sun Jiao looked at Jiang Chen. Snow blocking the road? A singled-out, mutated human outpost. Watching the snow on the window, a smile suddenly surfaced on Jiang Chen's face. This is an opportunity. You mean? Take them out. Reinforce Xinxiang town's defense, and intercept the mutated human force there, blocking them out of Qingpu. Chapter 173, Kinetic Skeleton. Comparing direct firepower, a soldier wearing AT-3 power armor had no inherent difference to a mutated human with a steel plate covering the front of its body. In a one-on-one scenario, power armor, with its high mobility and adaptability, would quickly take down the almost defenseless back of the mutated human. But if it escalated to a full-scale battle, the power armor's advantage would be mitigated as the battle would usually turn into cover fire. During the last crossfire with the mutated human, Jiang Chen already learned his lesson. The 10T-3 power armors had no advantage in firepower against the 30-something mutated human. It was even fair to say that they were at a disadvantage the entire time. In the end, they barely won with the advantageous positioning they had, but they lost with the cost of one power armor and multiple backup fuel rods. If Jiang Chen had a few more cannons, the situation would be drastically different. At the same time, the ability to produce heavy weaponry was fundamental to the existence of a survival base. From any perspective, Fishbone Base must develop its own heavy weaponry. So Jiang Chen already started doing that. The electric pulse cannon technology he purchased from Zhao Chenwu had been completely understood by the scientists at the base. Although the production condition at the base was still limited, after half a month, the Fishbone Base workers still managed to use the limited facility to manufacture 6 electric pulse cannons. This vehicle-mounted electric pulse cannon was used as the primary weapon on the tank during the war, but right now it was obviously not feasible to acquire a tank. Therefore, Jiang Chen thought of a compromise. Wheeled the electric pulse cannon onto the improved truck, and used steel reinforcement to strengthen the armor of the truck. Then, place a soldier on top to fire the cannon. Therefore, the odd-looking electric pulse cannon vehicle was created by Jiang Chen's wild imagination. Also, he gave this thing a name that couldn't be more childish: Tiger. Low armor, medium mobility, high range, high damage. It was extremely effective in rural areas with scattered structures, but it was a target in the city. Although the design was extreme, they had to work with what they had. On the other hand, following the production of the Hummingbird drone, patrolling outside of the base has been passed on to those palm-sized little guys. The Hummingbird drone has built up a force of over 100 units, which was more than enough to create an attack force. Although those little guys carried a limited amount of ammo, once there were enough of them, they were capable of deadly attacks. The attack on Xinjiang town was set to be 5 days later. The survivors in the base had since been busy. Although attacking in the winter didn't sound like the smartest decision, since it was the boss's decision, they would relentlessly execute it. The military production factory worked around the clock, and the workers under Jiang Chen's instructions installed the electric pulse cannon on the back of the modified trucks. The training ground then became crowded as the soldiers in winter suits, under the command of Chang Weigua, began to train. Although everyone was preparing relentlessly, Jiang Chen wasn't too concerned about this attack. It was only a force of 40 mutated humans. Not only did the Fishbone base have the fire support from the Tiger, but they also had helicopters that acted as gunships. Leaving the mansion wearing a thick winter suit, Jiang Chen headed straight to Jiang Lin's lab. For the scientist passionate about aerospace, Jiang Chen had a keen interest in him. Not only did Jiang Chen clean out a lab for him, but he also gave him a budget of 1,000 crystals a month to purchase related equipment. Although aerospace technology was not helpful to the Fishbone base now, if rockets were created, not only can they be shot into the sky, but if they're shot downwards, they could be used as missiles. Of course, the purpose of the trip was not to inquire about the missiles, but for something else. When he pushed open the lab door, Jiang Chen stepped into the room and quickly closed the door behind him. He shook off the snow on his body before walking inside the room. Ahem, what are you working on? A dazzling amount of electronic parts were randomly stored in the corner of the room. Some of them were needed for the launch of the rockets, and some of them were junk he brought back from Fake Leg specialty store. Although Jiang Lin didn't plan to continue his father's business, he still moved his stuff here. Rocket engine. Jiang Lin wore protective goggles with a welding tool in his hand as he concentrated on the parts on the table. Looking at the grease-covered hair, Jiang Chen didn't want to guess the last time he showered. It's great to be passionate about your own business, but... Did you complete the task I gave you? Jiang Chen walked over to a mechanical leg lying on the ground as he stood beside him. Done. It's on the shelf to your right, and the manual is on the shelf next to it. Jiang Lin said as carefully wielded a single microchip onto the engine, not turning his head. Just need to wait till the weather clears up. Install a smart power control into the engine, and then install signal blockage at the tip of the rocket. I am a genius, Jiang Lin mustered to himself as he looked ecstatic. Although Jiang Chen didn't know why. Kinetic skeleton, model K1. A line of small words was engraved on the metal strip as Jiang Chen read it out loud. He looked at the mechanical frame in his hand and began to play with it. But after a while, he still didn't have a single clue how it works. So, he took out the manual and began to read it step by step. The light plastic steel metal attached to the four limbs, and the spine position was covered by scale-like metal plates. To put it simply, this thing was like a metal skeleton. Although it had a metallic feel to it, it didn't feel cumbersome to wear. Jiang Chen moved his limbs and clenched his fingers, but he still didn't understand how it worked as a confused expression appeared on his face. Seeing that boss wearing his masterpiece, Jiang Lin dropped what he was working on, cleaned his hand, and walked over. The start button is on your neck. You can try pressing it. Following Jiang Lin's instruction, Jiang Chen skeptically placed his finger on his neck and quickly found a button. Then he tried pressing it down. A faint static noise was heard as Jiang Chen felt a temporary numbness on the back of his neck. The next second he was completely shocked. It was a surreal feeling. As if the metal strip became a part of his body. What maneuvered his body was no longer his own skeleton, but rather the metal skeleton attached to his body. Jiang Chen moved his limbs as the shock on his face intensified. Describing the feeling was difficult. Precisely, it seemed like the metal skeleton was really his own hand, but his real hand was only a tool he was using. Model K1 Kinetic Skeleton. Fake Leg Specialty Store's masterpiece. A proud smile appeared on Jiang Lin's face, as he took a curved plastic steel plate from the side and pressed it onto the empty slot in front of Jiang Chen's chest. Removable armor made of supramolecular polyethylene. It is bulletproof, so it can easily protect you against normal assault rifle bullets. The outside is sprayed with a reflective layer, so it has some defense against laser rifles. Of course, I don't recommend you take a few shots to test the strength of the armor. After he finished, Jiang Lin brought over several curved armors and slotted them onto Jiang Chen's stomach, legs, and shoulders. Almost done. Jiang Chen stood up and clapped his hands together. He then took a tablet from the table and connected a wire to Jiang Chen's armor. Jiang Chen looked at him as his fingers typed furiously on the screen. Quickly, the numb electrocuted sensation from the back of his neck disappeared and was replaced by an astonishing connection of his nerves to his muscles. It was not only simply the metal maneuvering his body, but the metal and body were simultaneously controlled by his brain. Jiang Chen moved his limbs as he became more and more shocked. Seeing the expression on the boss's face, Jiang Chen smiled and quickly backed away. With a pleased gesture, he said proudly, "Try hitting the sandbag." Hearing that, Jiang Chen clenched the fist covered by the thin layer of armor as he used his entire strength to punch. Boom! Dust blew everywhere. The violent force caused the sandbag to cave inward as the metal hanging the sandbag began to squeak in a whimpering noise. Beautiful. Let me see. 971 kilograms, not bad. Jiang Chen nodded his head as he scratched his chin and began to adjust the data on the tablet. Not bad? This is insane. Jiang Chen astonishingly stared at his hand as he ridiculed in his mind. A force of nearly 1 ton. An ordinary person's punch would be around 100 kilograms. He remembered Tyson could only punch with a force of 400 kilograms. But the sandbag didn't get punched through. Its quality must be excellent. While being shocked, Jiang Chen gave a few extra looks at the sandbag. Try the strength again. Jiang Chen quickly walked to the end of the room. Jiang Chen moved his leg around to test. When he realized that his coordination was not hindered, he walked over. There stood a metal box the size of a closet. The exposed part seemed similar to the weight of the sandbag. A white metal-covered signal light flashed unknowingly. The monitor on the side produced a faint light. Put your hand on the bar, and then use your maximum power to lift it. Jiang Chen passed a bar-like thing to him as he smiled. Following his instruction, Jiang Chen put his hands on the bar and lifted it up with his entire force. Strength, 64. Perfect. Jiang Chen snapped as he said with excitement. Compared to Jiang Chen's excitement, Jiang Chen's mood could be described as ecstatic. With only a few metal frames, it could allow people to acquire strength greater than the genetic vaccine. If every solider wore a set, Fishbone Base's combat power would more than double. Chapter 174, Out of Stock? If the power armor were the full-body armor of the knight, then the kinetic skeleton would be an infantry's chainmail. The entire mass was less than 10 kgs. The supermolecular polyethylene could guard 7 to 12 rounds of point-blank shots from a 7.62 mm assault. If it were an assault rifle from the modern world, it would not even make a dent in the armor. For equipping, the maximum weight carried by a single soldier would increase to 300 kilograms. The power source was 2 pieces of battery the size of a fist and was placed above the pelvis area. After a complete charge, it would allow the equipped person to run at a speed of 12 km per hour carrying the 300 kilograms for 1 hour. Or, it could operate in normal combat conditions for 12 hours. The power could be charged through solar cells, or it could instantly be replenished with crystals. It was fair to say, other than the aerospace technology that has yet to see results, a significant factor that Jiang Chen considered when recruiting Jiang Chen was the kinetic skeleton technology of the fake leg specialty store. Although he didn't manage to continue the family business, being forced by his father, he still learned the essential skills. When he personally experienced the power of Model K1 kinetic skeleton, Jiang Chen immediately proposed the feasibility of mass equipping the force. Equipping the force? Jiang Chen was confused when he heard Jiang Chen's question, but then an odd expression appeared on his face. Do you know the time and cost to produce a set of kinetic skeleton like this? How much? Jiang Chen asked carelessly. Based on the official price in the 6th Street, the current set you are wearing cost around 900 crystals. 900 crystals could purchase more than 10 slaves if you give them rifles. Regardless of what kind of super soldier, they can't beat 10-something rifles. Jiang Chen let out a sigh as he started to calculate the economics for Jiang Chen. But the 6th Street no longer sells population. Jiang Chen pressed the button on his neck as the faint static noise rose again and he took off the kinetic skeleton. The 6th Street doesn't sell population, but other places do. For example, Sioux City. They have the biggest slave market in Suang Province. They'll come to the 6th Street next spring. Jiang Chen tried to convince his boss. But we can't wait till next spring. Jiang Chen, with a smile, carried the kinetic skeleton in his hands. When the snow melts next year, the mutated human will invade from 7th area to Qingpu. We are the only force that's capable of putting up a defense. Therefore we will face the most pressure from them. Hearing that, Jiang Chen's face immediately turned white. He has never heard about this before. If he had heard about it, he would not have come to work here even if they beat him to death. The reason why he tried to convince the boss to give up the idea of mass production of the kinetic skeleton was the fact that he was worried his own research time for the rocket would be limited. Do you regret coming here? Jiang Chen smiled. Jiang Lin gulped as he looked away, disheartened. No. Don't be afraid. Your heartbeat already told me you are regretting it. Jiang Chen smiled as he patted him on the shoulder without criticizing his fear. It is okay to be afraid. People fear death for a reason. Since you are afraid, then follow what I have said. I heard that there are a few thousand mutated humans in the 7th area, Jiang Lin strugglingly said. To be exact, there are 3,000. Perhaps a bit more than that, but it's not something you need to worry about. Kinetic skeleton must be mass-produced. Regardless how many crystals we spend, you must manufacture 50 sets before next year January, Jiang Chen used an irrefutable voice. Even with a cost of 900 crystals per set, 50 sets would only be 45,000 crystals. Fishbone Base didn't lack money. It was time to convert the wealth accumulated in the early phases into power. Jiang Lin gulped again as he saw the seriousness in the boss' eyes as he nodded arduously. I'll try my best. But it can't be done with just me. I need help. Just tell me how much assistance you need. Let me think. The handcrafted metal skeleton would require 10 people, welding the microchips would take 4, drawing the circuit board would need 8, as well as modifying the power system. Based on my estimation, I would require 40 workers to be able to complete a streamlined process. In this case, I could probably manage to complete 50 sets of kinetic skeletons before January. Jiang Lin had a troubled smile. There was a total of 200 people in the base. Everyone had their own duties and responsibilities, it was impossible to assemble a team of 40. But Jiang Chen's following words shocked him. I'll give you 80 people. Could you double the production? Sure, but is there enough people in the base? Jiang Lin had to ask. You don't have to worry about it. We'll have plenty of people soon. Right now, you only need to figure out how to design the production line, how to train your team, and what materials must be purchased. The production force will be ready in 5 days. Jiang Chen laughed. The Fishbone Base didn't have the people, but Xinxiang Town had them. The 700 survivors captured by the mutated humans. He just needed to bring them back. As to whether they would be obedient or not. On the wasteland, there was no inherent difference between being captured and being saved. If they wanted to continue to live, they must be obedient. After coming out of Jiang Lin's lab, Jiang Chen headed to the community center to find the warehouse keeper Wang Qin. When Jiang Chen came to the office, the girl with freckles was going through her books as usual. When she saw Jiang Chen, her eyes lit up, as she stopped what she was doing, and got up to greet him. I am just here to check the status of the supplies in the base. Don't be so anxious, Jiang Chen gently smiled as he joked. Wang Qin's face blushed shyly. She pushed her glasses up as she took out the tablet terminal and began to display the data to Jiang Chen. First, it was crystals. After the accumulation of several trades, the crystals stored in the Fishbone Base had reached a frightening number of 790,000. Because of the addition of several production lines, the crystals spent last month reached 30,000. This included the purchase of raw materials, as well as direct consumption for fuel in industrial production. Jiang Chen asked Wang Qin to save 500,000 crystals as liquid assets to purchase shares of the about-to-be-established 6th Street Bank. The rest of the 290,000 crystals would be used as production spending. Even with the addition of a kinetic skeleton line, the current amount of stored crystals was more than sufficient. Then, it would be the firearms storage. There were 200,000 rounds of ammo stored in the base, with 60% directly manufactured by the base. After they acquired Huizhong Mercenaries' ammo production line, Fishbone Base began to work towards producing its own firearms. Then, it would be the 5 kg bombs. This is the standard ammo for the electromagnetic cannon. Following the completion of the Tiger, the military factory's production has been shifting towards bombs. The current stock was 200 rounds, with 50 being produced each day. After a period of consumption, as well as the large quantity of replenishment since the last time he returned, the base currently stored 8 tons of rice, 2 tons of potato, and easy-to-store vegetables like cabbage and carrot totaled 5 tons. Sausage, marinated meat, and other preserved food added up to 2 tons. After Jiang Chen realized it was cheaper to purchase fresh food than canned food, Fishbone Base's cafeteria no longer provided canned food. All cans were only sold, or as an award to survivors that contributed to the base. With the assumption of 1 pound of rice per day per person, this food would last the group of 202 years. But considering the addition of 700 survivors soon, the rate of food consumption would undoubtedly increase. Even with an increase in survivors, the current storage of food would last at least half a year. Also, the base is preparing to add a new kinetic skeleton production line. Jiang Lin will send the list of purchases over in a bit. Send someone to purchase it from the 6th Street. Uh-huh. Wang Qi nodded and then wrote Jiang Chen's words in the tablet. Following the increased quantity of supplies, one warehouse keeper was not enough. After asking for Wang Qin's opinion, Jiang Chen added a logistics department to the base's administration, responsible for managing warehouse supplies, daily consumption, and trade-related tasks. Trade was previously the responsibility of Sun Jiao, but she seemed to get a headache with small tasks containing minuscule details, so she threw the duties to the logistics department. The logistics department was of course led by Wang Qin. The department increased to 5 people, managing a total of 6 warehouses. I said you don't have to be so anxious. Seeing how the girl was taking notes seriously, Jiang Chen couldn't stop laughing. Although she had matured compared to when she just got to the base, the trait of blushing did not change at all. Also, what's the status of Zhou Guoping's bar in the 6th Street? After recollecting her previous calmness, Wang Qin pushed her glasses up and said in a focused tone, 4,000 cans of beer were consumed in October, resulting in a total profit of 40,000 crystals. Hearing the news, Jiang Chen nodded. He didn't care about the profitability of the bar. He was more keen on using the traffic generated to bring him intelligence. The beers were only a few bucks in the modern world, which was nothing. But of course, as the saying goes, although mosquitoes were small, meat was still meat, and the income from the beers was quite good. Also, there is something else. Wang Qin saw that Jiang Chen was in a good mood, but she hesitated for a moment before she spoke. Uh-huh. The raw material used to produce the automatic rifles and hummingbird drone, the calm tree sap, is out of stock. Out of stock? Jiang Chen frowned. It was a big problem. The threat of mutated human was approaching fast, the fishbone base was working around the clock to produce firearms, and now calm tree sap was out of stock? The plantation that provided us with calm tree sap terminated the contract, and paid us 1,000 crystals as the penalty, Wang Qin said helplessly. Reason? Following the increase in production on the 6th Street, the price of calm tree sap rose by 20%, which is much higher compared to the price signed on the contract. They also signed a large quantity long-term deal with other companies. Therefore, they shamelessly terminated our contract. Wang Qin said in anger. So how much is left in the base? Jiang Chen said in a serious tone. 2 tons left. Enough to maintain production for 1 more month. Uh-huh, I'll take care of this. Jiang Chen nodded. If the 6th Street can't supply it, the fishbone base can just produce it on our own. Chapter 175, Produce Ourselves. Growing calm trees? Sun Jiao thought for a second before a troubled look appeared on her face. Is there a problem? We could probably buy the sapling on the market. If we can't, I'll get Zhou Guoping to think of other ways. Jiang Chen didn't understand. No, it's not the problem with tree saplings are easy to obtain. Seeing that Jiang Chen seemed to be misinterpreting her meaning, Sun Jiao forced a bitter smile. The problem is growing them. Growing? I remember these mutated plants were able to survive in the apocalypse's soil, is there any problems? Jiang Chen raised his eyebrows. Typical crops could not grow in the nuclear and biological contaminated soil, but mutated plants that survived the war could. Logically, anything that could grow in the 6th Street, the fishbone base could grow the same thing. Hearing Jiang Chen's question, Sun Jiao facepalmed as she began patiently explaining the fundamentals. To grow anything on the wasteland, there are 2 factors to consider. 1 is radiation level, and 2 is soil contamination level. As long as there is material exchange with the outside world, it cannot avoid the impact of radiation. There is nothing in the apocalypse that is free of radiation. Not even the drinking water treated by the automatic water purifying equipment. It doesn't negatively affect humans because of the existence of the EP and special medication that reduces the radiation level to below the danger threshold. However, plants are not so lucky. To ensure the planted apple does not mutate, the radiation level must be controlled to below 1. If the radiation level is above 5, even normal seeds buried into the ground will become abnormal. With the 6th Street's technology, it is able to control the radiation level to around 3, which certainly reflects how valuable the fruit cans you brought are. But the mutated plants that survive through natural selection are not that delicate. Their resistance to radiation is quite high. Take calm trees for example. As long as radiation levels are below 40, it can grow normally. Most of the places on the wasteland have a threshold value between 10 to 20. As long as it's not in a nuclear crater, the radiation level will not reach 40. The soil contamination is relatively easier to solve since soilless planting technology is incredibly mature in the apocalypse. Therefore, the plantations in the apocalypse can be divided into 2 kinds. One is the kind that uses soilless technology to grow crops. There is a distinct advantage to growing crops this way is that it can easily control soil contamination, and the production area would also be greater compared to soil plants. The disadvantage is also evident, mainly being the high cost. To use soilless technology to produce industrial raw materials like palm tree sap would undoubtedly bankrupt the business. It normally would be used to grow luxury goods, such as not completely mutated fruit. The signature building in the 6th Street includes a soilless plantation tower. Of course, because of the appearance of fruit cans, this industry was on the brink of bankruptcy. The other kind is normal soil plantation. Simple and straightforward, planting the seeds and watering them would yield plants. Whether it would be done by human labor with scythes spreading the seeds or mechanical plantation, it would be up to the preference of the owner. It is used to mostly produce non-expensive mutated plants, such as the industrially used palm tree sap, and different flavors of tobacco. The advantage of this method is the low cost, but it has a strict requirement for the quality of the soil. Take palm trees for example. Only plants with soil contamination less than 10 can be used to grow these trees. This type of soil is also extremely rare on the wasteland, so palm tree sap production is not high even on the 6th Street. Previously, this raw material had minimal demand, but during this period, demand far exceeded supply. Couldn't we just purchase soilless equipment? Jiang Chen was refusing to give up. Using soilless equipment to grow palm trees, how much crystals would you use to obtain 1 ton of palm tree sap? Sun Jiao facepalmed feeling helpless. This is problematic now. Jiang Chen's eyebrows began to twist as he fell into deep thought. But then, he suddenly remembered Lin Lin. Yes. The Garden of Eden project. If it is possible to change the local biosphere, there is no reason there is no technology to change the condition of the soil. Did you think of something? Sun Jiao looked confusedly as Jiang Chen's always changing expression. The tip of Jiang Chen's mouth curled up. Looks like the little slave in our mansion is finally going to be useful. Sun Jiao instantly understood as a sign of joy also flashed across her face. What? Reduce soil contamination? Why should I help you? With fingers holding onto the test tube, the smooth and silky silver hair hid the disdained expression on Lin Lin's face as she said without any consideration. The one red and one black pupil were the same as when he left before. It seemed that she became used to having an odd creature living inside her body. Because you need to eat, Jiang Chen let out a sigh as he said righteously. He was already becoming bored of looking at her humiliated expression, but this girl seemed to think otherwise. Do you feel great about being bullied now? Seeing the slightly sad Lin Lin drawing on the touch board, Jiang Chen said helplessly. With such a gorgeous face, she had to have such a terrible expression. Goody. With her finger finishing the last line, Lin Lin gave Jiang Chen a hard stare and popped out her tongue to give him a scary face. What is this? Jiang Chen ignored her action as he got closer to the touch board. Ahem, foolish dash. Lin Lin straightened her back while the tip of her lips curved up. Ahem. Ah. Enough. Fine, I'll say it. Lin Lin pouted her mouth in sadness as she touched the screen. The first step is to neutralize the soil. The second step is to use ion membranes to permeate out the heavy metal ions. The third step is... Hold on, what is an ion membrane? Jiang Chen interrupted her as he was completely lost. A thing that can easily filter through the ion particles should be pretty common, Lin Lin said nonchalantly. What? I have never heard about this before. Jiang Chen suddenly recalled that Lin Lin had always stayed in the research facility, for she wouldn't be so clueless about the situation of the apocalypse otherwise. In this case, the common in her mind probably meant common in the lab. Did not think this through. Let me first ask, how many steps does this process include? Jiang Chen was feeling speechless. Not that many, only 24 steps. I have taken a sample of the soil here before, and the contamination level is 68. It's hard to believe in a land this toxic weeds can grow. When the topic revolved around her field of interest, Lin Lin became keener. Does your lab not consider costs when you experiment? Jiang Chen ridiculed. Costs? Of course, Lin Lin disagreed. Then tell me after 24 steps, what is the cost? Lin Lin looked at Jiang Chen strangely. Are you misinterpreting something? Project Garden of Eden is not a soil purification project. Since it is a subproject of space colonization, then why do we need to understand how to treat the pollution on Earth? Using organics as well as minerals on other planets, we could produce soil. It is too troublesome to purify it. Produce soil? That's right. It is not difficult to produce soil. At least easier than washing the ground. But since all the finished goods are contaminated here, it would not be easy to find raw ingredients to form clean soil. Lin Lin let out a sigh. Produce soil? Other planets? Jiang Chen suddenly smacked his own head as he cursed in his mind. F***ck, why didn't I think of this before? It is not that difficult. I can interdimensional travel. If I can carry back food, how difficult would it be to transport a couple of 100 cubic meters of soil? Since the problem was solved, Jiang Chen didn't plan to ask further, so he changed the topic. Okay, let's not talk about this. Oh, did you finish the task I gave you? Chapter 176, Wormhole. Since it has been a while, the Deathclaw and mutated lead skin human research should be completed? Of course. Who do you think I am? Lin let out a sigh as a confident expression appeared on her face. Follow me. She crooked her finger at Jiang Chen as she turned around, swaying her silver white hair, and walked to the giant vial in the back. A naked monster with its flesh exposed was in the middle of the vial. The dark green liquid occasionally had bubbles blowing upwards. It seemed like the work of a science freak in American comics. But Jiang Chen didn't focus on that. Rather he looked at the bottom part of the monster. Just like the rumors say, no d*ck. Lin pointed her delicate finger and pressed the touch screen on the side of the vial. Several orange lights shined into the hologram screen in front of them. The list of data on the screen had Jiang Chen completely lost. Lin, standing beside him, looked at him contemptuously in secret. She imprudently made fun of Jiang Chen's ignorance in her mind before speaking with her head held high. Muscle strength or body strength 63, bone strength 47, reflex 20, brain cell strength 9. From a human perspective, without overexerting the body's capabilities, this is the limit of the body's strength. Speaking of this, is this guy still considered human? Lin had her finger on her chin as she muttered to herself. Jiang Chen glanced at her. Is this girl still considered human? The cell in the body is modified by the FEV virus. Similarly, the skin is implanted with heavy metal. The lead skin could be compared to C-type steel, and it could easily defend against standard bullets. The regeneration of the cell is ridiculously fast. Based on the data of the body's DNA, even if it lost an arm, it would be able to grow one back in a week's time. Although I never fought before, if this thing was put in the battlefield, it should be invincible, right? The pacifist Lin even started to exclaim about the battle ability of this thing. Does it not have any weaknesses? Jiang Chen had a troubled smile. Of course. Lin nodded, first because of the influence of heavy metal. Their nervous system is extremely weak. The brain cell strength is as low as 9. Also, their life is limited. Based on its DNA and regeneration calculation, their life expectancy is only 30 years. Also, if their head or heart is destroyed, they will die instantly. It was the same as not saying anything. Which creature would still live without a brain or heart? Jiang Chen let out a sigh. Looks like there is no shortcut to this. To destroy this dangerous thing we would have to depend on Tiger. Using its pure explosive power of electromagnetic cannons to blow this thing into pieces. Also, can I ask a question? Lin abruptly spoke out. Go ahead. When I first acquired the body I was utterly astonished. What did you do to destroy every single cell in the mutated human's body? Lin looked oddly at Jiang Chen as she was clueless. It was time travel. But he did not dare to tell her yet. Jiang Chen subtly looked away as he began to come up with a vague response. Well, I used a special weapon that instantly ended all cell activity. Speaking of this, what do those cells look like under the microscope? The cell membrane broke. Based on the way it broke, it appeared to be due to extremely low temperatures that caused the fluid in the cell to freeze. It is peculiar. As if without preparation, it traveled through a wormhole with entropy infinitely approaching zero, Lin doubtingly said, as she stared at Jiang Chen. Extremely low temperatures? But there was no temperature change during time travel. Jiang Chen slightly raised his eyebrows and didn't notice Lin's look of doubt. Seeing Jiang Chen had no reaction, Lin continued. Passing through an area with entropy infinitely approaching zero would have no impact on dead things, but for something alive, it would be nearly impossible for them to remain alive. But as the shortcut to intergalactic travel, passing through a wormhole is a topic that can't be avoided, as how to travel through wormholes had a lot of interesting hypotheses in the physics world. Among them, Dr. Klein's hypothesis had the most authority. Klein? Jiang Chen felt that he had heard this name before. That's right. To put it in a simple analogy, mass and energy through two completely parallel tunnels cross the wormhole. As she said this, Lin grabbed a pen to draw a cylinder on the whiteboard. Then she drew two parallel lines, one passed through inside the cylinder, and another passed through outside the cylinder. As long as you send the energy at the entrance of wormhole through the tunnel into another dimension to the end of the wormhole and meet with the mass that passes through the wormhole there, it would avoid the part where entropy decreases in the wormhole. Detach the energy? Wouldn't that creature die instantly? Jiang Chen didn't understand. Therefore, this is the brilliance of Dr. Klein. Lin sighed. She drew T1 and T2 at the ends of the whiteboard and gave them a value to 0. Time. Based on research, within the wormhole, time, space, and all physics principles are ambiguous. To put it in simple terms, you could spin around a few times before walking to the exit, or you could instantly head for the exit when you enter the wormhole. As long as you find the perfect route, you could decrease the time to pass through the wormhole to zero. I'll give you an analogy. A door frame is put in front of you. You have a ball in your hand that represents your temperature. Based on the rule, when the ball passes through the door frame, I will take it away from you. So instead, the instant you're about to cross the door frame, you throw the ball up and the ball would fly above the door frame. Then, once you go through the door frame, you catch the ball, and successfully pass through the door with the ball. I see. Jiang Chen half-understandingly nodded his head. Therefore, how did you pass through the door? I don't know. I used the bracelet. Suddenly, Jiang Chen looked cautiously at Lin Lin and narrowed his eyes. You are setting me up. The fool wants to say it himself, the tip of Lin Lin's mouth raised in proudness as she said nonchalantly. You are playing with fire. She seemed to have sensed the grimace in Jiang Chen's tone as Lin Lin sacredly moved back. The proud expression completely vanished. I am only curious. I have no other intention. Also, you suddenly appeared from the tent last time. I already had an idea. After seeing so much food in the base, you must be an alien, right? An alien? Jiang Chen paused for a moment before he burst out laughing. What are you laughing at? Lin Lin worked up her courage and fainted protested. Ahem, nothing. Since you already guessed most of it, I'll tell you. Jiang Chen smiled. I am a time traveler from the past, from the year 2015. Lin Lin took some time to think before she raised her pair of serene eyebrows. Time traveler? From the past? You already said all physics principle doesn't apply in the wormhole since it could avoid the space continuum, time continuum would not be a problem too, right? Jiang Chen shrugged. Based on the theory, yes. Although out of the 6 colonization ships, 3 passed through the wormhole. As to the specifics of passing through the wormhole, only they would know. Lin Lin nodded, but then looked at Jiang Chen doubtfully. I didn't know that this stingy devil could tell me this secret. What if I told you? Jiang Chen with a smile looked at the one black and one red pupil. I don't plan to ever let you go. Hearing that, Lin Lin's face instantly turned red as it was the rare time she didn't badmouth back, but rather shifted her eyes to the side. Jiang Chen didn't realize the other meaning in his words as he looked at the girl, forced to be obedient, pleasingly. Also, what about that death claw? Is the result out? When he mentioned the death claw, Lin Lin, rarely tense, turned serious. I found some odd things on the death claw. After leaving from Lin Lin's lab, Jiang Chen fell into deep thought thinking about what she just said. Everyone knew that the starting point of the X1 virus was to purify radiation, but because it experienced uncontrollable mutation under the radiation environment, it turned into the frightening virus. But X2's design philosophy was rather dubious. As the improved version of the X1 virus, X2's purification ability was increased. But the food for thought element was that the effect of infiltrating creatures' nervous system was not removed, but rather strengthened. It also increased the structure of the cell, making it harder to be eliminated by the immune system. As if it was designed to eliminate all humans along with the radiation. The fortunate part was that because the cell's DNA structure was too stable, it could not split through binary fission. It could only produce through the mother's body. Therefore, after Jiang Chen cleared out the source in the area, the X2 virus slowly began to vanish. Could it be born through X1's own mutation? Since there is radiation everywhere. Impossible, Lin Lin shook her head as she rejected Jiang Chen's doubt with certainty. The death claw evolved to have armor, simplified its molecular chain to develop claws, and these were all part of natural selection. To survive, creatures would be forced to adapt and evolve certain traits, but not put a lock on its own life. The complicated breeding mechanism has no practical meaning for survival, and it is impossible that X2 was born through evolution. She paused, before continuing, the only possibility is that someone created the X2 virus. But what I don't understand is, the X1 virus data should already have been on board with the colonization ship. Could it be another scientist that didn't manage to make it onto the ship created it? Jiang Chen raised his eyebrows. I am not sure, Lin Lin shook her head, but one point is certain, and that is the people who developed the X2 virus definitely have no good intentions. Someone wanted the humans on the wasteland to become extinct. But who could it be? Mutated humans have enough of a reason, but a virus that the death claw couldn't even handle, could they resist it? But if it was not the mutated human, who had the motives to do this? Suddenly, a frightening thought popped into Jiang Chen's mind. If wormholes could create time travel, then where did the 3 space colonization ships go? Did they really completely abandon this planet? Chapter 177, Slavery. Seatbelt check. Ready to depart. Chunan closed the hatch. Don't worry, I checked already. Jiang Chen, wearing the kinetic skeleton, pointed at his shoulder and smiled. This is procedure. Okay, lift off. Chunan opened the engine switch while signaling the apprentice in the co-pilot position to keep an eye on the monitors on the right side. Woohoo dash. Outside of the helicopter, high-voltage static began to hum. Under the push of the furious vortex flow, the 51 helicopter began to lift off slowly. Sitting across Jiang Chen was the gunner. The young man wearing orange protective gear felt shy with the base leader sitting across from him. Don't be anxious. Jiang Chen gave him a friendly smile. Yes. The young man shouted out. Just as he wanted to stand up to salute, he was comically pulled back by the seatbelt. Jiang Chen laughed as he waved his hand signally there was no need. Then he focused his gaze on what was happening outside the window. It stopped snowing, but the snow had yet to melt. It was the first time overseeing the entirety of Wanghai City in the sky. A frozen world. The city at dawn shone brightly. The glittering colors seemed to have fended off the gloom of the radiation dust in the air. If it was not for the occasional zombie, as well as the unhealthy colored smog, he could almost forget that he was in the apocalypse, and was instead in a snowy city in the northern kingdom. From this view, the city is quite beautiful, Jiang Chen exclaimed while looking through the window. The first time is indeed powerful. But if you fly every day, you'll get used to it. Chunan laughed. Yeah? Jiang Chen smiled as he didn't disagree. 5 Tigers, 1 armored vehicle carrying supplies, 30 light infantry carrying Reaper assault rifle, as well as 2 snipers equipped with Ghost sniper rifles. The destination was Xinjiang Town. This was Fishbone Base's first attack on the mutated humans. Jiang Chen didn't need to come, but considering they needed the 700 captured survivors at the base, it would be best for the Fishbone leader to stand out and say something. Also, to observe the battle from above was something he looked forward to. About to be in contact with radiation dust. Put on the mask. As he spoke, Chunan pulled the mask down over his helmet. Received. Jiang Chen pressed a few buttons on the kinetic skeleton, picked up the helmet on the chair beside him, and connected the extension to the slot. It snowed, but this level of coldness was as indifferent as the spring breeze to the mutated humans. Even if they were fully exposed to the external conditions, they could still stand tall in the chilling snowstorm, ignoring the furious wind, and unleash the full firepower of the guns in their hands. They were natural warriors. Viewing highly of themselves, they were the terminators of the old civilization. Even if their bodies were unafraid of the cold, long winter journeys were still extremely difficult for them. Additionally, the stronger the body, the higher the supply consumption. Since west of Zhufeng Road had been entirely blocked by the snow, it meant it was nearly impossible for vehicles to traverse across it, and this fact put the already short supply line under more pressure. There were only 2 options in front of the mutated humans. 1. Send a team to Xinjiang Town across the Taifu River bank to establish an outpost, and then send the primary force to Wanghai City. 2. Wait till next spring to invade Wanghai City. There was no possibility of the mutated humans and humans to reach a peaceful negotiation. Once they encountered each other, it would be a bloodbath. As for the decision to invade Wanghai City and engage in conflicts with the local human force, the mutated human leader was cautious. Different from the scattered survivors in Jia City, as the hotspot during the war, Wanghai City had multiple survivor camps that inherited frontier military technology before the war. If they had to engage in conflict with the human force, the mutated human would rather have it happen during the winter. If they waited for spring, the advantage of the mutated humans being able to fight in harsh climates would be non-existent. At the same time, hungry mutants would wake up from hibernation, which would make the trip into city center more problematic. Because of the above reasons, the mutated humans decided to go with Plan 1 for now. Although the highway between 7th Area and Xinjiang Town was completely blocked by snow, the road condition from Xinjiang Town to Wanghai City was relatively smooth. As long as they establish an outpost to store supplies, the pressure of the supply line would be greatly alleviated. A winter crusade would be possible. Therefore, the captured survivors in Xinjiang Town were not immediately escorted back, but rather were forced to construct defensive structures by the mutated humans there. Outside Xinjiang Town, the outline of the reinforced concrete wall was starting to become visible. The sides of the road were piled with wood chips and were placed as obstacles and barriers to block the major roads outside of the town. But when the mutated humans arrived, the flimsy barrier could not bring even the slightest sense of security to the survivors hiding behind cover. The monster-wielding steel-carried machine guns and the bullet storm destroyed the mental fortitude of every defender. In the shack not far away from this place, the painted concrete wall was cut in half by the coilless cannon. On the shambles were terrifying bullet holes, and the blood stains on the wooden floor in the room were still clearly visible. The survivors defending behind cover could not cause a single casualty to the attacking mutated humans. But when the first mutated human passed through the wooden barrier, tens of bodies were already on the ground, which forced the survivors to raise the white flag and surrender. The recalcitrant's body was pierced by wooden spears, hung in the snow being eroded by the snowstorm, and eaten by the mutated rats. Just like a flag, declaring the cruelty of the victors. Wang Pin, with cold eyes, stared at the frail humans as they dragged concrete and steel through the snow with difficulty, building up their outpost. Move quicker, you damn pests. Who said you could stop, uh-huh? A horrific-looking mutated human held a whip as he cursed at the slaves. His whip regularly beat at the weak figures, without any care if they actually made a mistake or not. The frightened faces instinctively made him feel joyful. Since he couldn't acquire pleasant sensations physiologically, the body full of male hormones could only be alleviated through primal violence. Luke, don't accidentally kill them. Even if they are pests, they still have value in entertaining us. Wang Pin strolled beside the supervisor as he flashed his mouth full of fangs. Looking at the boy lying in the snow, he did not hide his eyes full of disgust and disdain. The mutated human, after being reborn, would rename themselves, abandoning the ancient ethics along with their name. Haha. Luke flung the whip in his hand as he laughed. Cowards, all eyes on me. The people carrying bags of concrete all stopped. Men, women, elderly, and children. The white snow circled around them, but it could not hide their terrified looks. They could not scream, nor be anger. The chilling cold already caused their facial nerves to lose any sense of feeling. The bloodthirsty mutated humans made them forget the dignity they had. He looked at the numb faces with satisfaction. Luke lowered his head and looked at the boy trembling in the snow. With a grimace, he lifted his foot and stepped on the youthful face. Ah, the suppressed scream came from the bottom of his foot, as the frozen fingers tightly grasped onto the ground as he crashed into the freezing snow. The father of the boy stood on the side with his shoulders trembling. His bloodshot eyes widened at the scene. The mutated humans on the side carried their rifles as they mockingly looked at the slaves being humiliated. The lack of entertainment meant that the thing they loved to do the most was to humiliate the helpless slaves. FEV virus was magical. The magical part was that it would make the modified person forget any previous reluctance and experience the sensation of evolution. They would forget about their hatred towards the mutated humans and willingly join the new party, and in turn shift their hatred onto the old species unwilling to accept evolution. No. A deafening scream broke the silence. A woman with messy hair leaped onto the snow as she tightly held onto the mutated human's foot while desperately trying to save the boy being stepped on. Mom. The boy's eyeballs were protruding because of pressure, his mouth weakly moved. Luke apathetically observed the woman from above, coldly staring at the plea and despair in her eyes. Get out. The cold words left his mouth. Luke lifted the foot stepping on the boy's face as he kicked her chest mercilessly and sent the woman flying. She struggled to stand up from the snow, the edges of her mouth had blood dripping down as she coughed. But her eyes didn't look at Luke, and instead looked at the boy freed from under his foot. A tender smile appeared on her face as she crawled to the kid. For some reason, the expression on the woman's face enraged Luke. Stop, he arrogantly ordered. The woman ignored him as she shakingly moved her arms in the boy's direction. Seeing his mom was getting closer, the boy looked relieved. But then, a rifle was pointed at her head. She blankly looked at it as despair appeared on her face. Could it not be here? She used her trembling voice to plead. The second she leaped out from the crowd, she knew her fate. The people who dared to defy them all died, no exception. If possible, she didn't want to die in front of her child. Luke's face held a disdained grimace. This person wanted to discuss terms with him? Let her go. A man stood out, but his legs and shoulders trembled. Luke scorned. I am willing to die for her. This sentence seemed to have taken all of his courage. The woman looked at the man with eyes wide open as the sign of life began to vanish from her face. The cracked mouth opened as a powerless voice whispered out. No. Then go die. Luke immediately fired. The bullet penetrated his chest, and even hurt the elder behind him. A dash. The crowd howled. The woman's scream was filled with heartbreak, and the boy's eyes opened wide as he watched his father fall into the snow. Seeing the woman on all fours scrambling to crawl to her husband, Luke's face revealed a psychotic but satisfied smile. He lifted his gun again as he was about to execute the woman that dared to dirty his feet. But just at that moment, Wang Pin, standing on the side, gently put his hand on the lifted rifle. Chapter 178, The Unscientific Electromagnetic Cannon. The woman covered her husband as the body's temperature began to drop. The woman desperately tried to use her own heat to warm him, to save his fading life. I love you. No, I won't allow you to go. Droplets of tears rolled down the woman's cheek, splattering on the blood-soaked jacket. Sorry. I don't want your apology. I don't dash. The heartbreaking scream could not stop the body's temperature from dropping. Luke moved his eyes away from the two as he looked confusedly at his companion. He didn't understand his intention. It's too boring to kill them, buddy. You haven't learned the essence of torture. Wang Pin patted his shoulder, pretending to sound wise as he cracked a smile. Oh? Luke raised his eyebrows as he stuffed the gun into his lap. Go ahead then. Wang Pin took the gun with a grimace on his face. He ignored the woman looking at him with anger and fear, and turned to the other pigs. Pigs, listen up. Now, anyone who are *pes her will be given freedom. The crowd became unsettled, but no one came up. Luke looked at his colleague, not understanding his intention. He didn't know what was the purpose of seeing herds of humans in intercourse. That's right, herds. From the mutated human's perspective, humans were only livestock. Due to traces of memory being left from before their transformation, they didn't eat human flesh like cannibals. However, they would not shy away from any cruelty to obtain a sense of joy from the howling humans. No one? If I remember correctly, this woman, to your standard of beauty, should be quite attractive. Wang Pin continued to hold his rifle and said slowly. Is there any purpose in this? Luke was still confused. Of course, buddy, learn from me. Other than killing, there are a lot of other ways to dig out the despair in their hearts. Wang Pin smiled with a grimace as he licked his dry lips. He then looked at the frightened woman backing away from him. Lying on top of her husband's yet-to-be-cold body, under the watch of her son, and humiliated by countless people. What kind of despair would be on such a face? The idea is making me excited. Isn't the whole purpose of the existence of civilization to blossom the glimpse of light under the torture of the primal? Ha ha ha. The cruel laughter was deafening, shaking off the snow on trees that were a few kilometers away. Luke blankly looked at the psychotic smile on his colleague as an excited expression appeared on his face. *T, you are a genius. Oh, devil. You must be an artist in your previous life. Who knows? Wang Pin smiled as he used his gun to point at the closest man. You, go fu *k her. The man gulped, gritted his teeth, and defiantly said. I can't do it. Bang dash. Like a piece of paper, he fell onto the ground. The man's face still maintained a defiant expression, with a glimpse of disbelief. Next. Wang Pin pointed the gun at the next man, a middle-aged man holding his bleeding arm. Trembling, the middle-aged man walked a few steps, before finally kneeling onto the ground. I dash. Bang dash. Wang Pin didn't give him the opportunity to explain as he immediately blew up his head. Red and white splattered everywhere and even splashed onto the person behind him. Wang Pin raised his chin and targeted the next person. Perhaps terrified by the horrific scene, the third person only hesitated slightly before looking down and running to the woman with trembling steps. Sorry, please forgive me. The man was afraid to look at the expression on the woman's face as he mercilessly reached for her collar. And, no. The woman's eyes widened in despair. The man ignored her struggling plea. He ignored all the morals and dignity of the human civilization and pushed her down on the body that was still slowly losing its temperature. In his mind, he was desperately trying to comfort himself. If he didn't do it, he would die. He was doing it, but it was not his intention. Wang Pin pleasingly looked at the man's action. The joy of ripping the civilization apart was almost making him shake in excitement. Luke, standing on the side, also had his eyes wide open. He was only a mutated human for less than 2 years, and it was the first time he witnessed such a joyful moment other than from violence. Wang Pin raised his gun again, pointing at the next person. Just as he was about to speak, he heard the shout of the patrol. What is that? The mutated human carrying an assault rifle pointed at the black dot in the sky. He raised his eyebrows as Wang Pin looked up. What is dash? Boom. Mixed with thick smoke, the snow on the ground blew up like an avalanche as it flew over the crowd. The shockwave flipped people onto the ground as the frightened crowd ditched the concrete and steel bags in their hands. They ran to the nearest barrier or ducked into the field. The mutated humans didn't stop them because their situation was not any better. Damn it, what is it? Wang Pin crawled up from the ground as he looked at the thick smoke 10 meters away with horrid. The bloodthirsty pupils contracted as a rare sense of fear surfaced. Direct hit. Beautiful. Jiang Chen smiled as he gave a thumbs up to the gunner. The furious wind blew through the hatch door as the orange protective suit gusted in the chill. The gunner wearing his mask turned and nodded his head to express his gratitude towards Jiang Chen's praise. Then, without stopping, he carried another 10 kilograms bomb and stuffed it into the cartridge as the cannon began to charge. At this moment, Jiang Chen had a tablet in his hand. The flashing picture on the scene was of the entire battlefield. The camera located below the helicopter holistically presented the overview of the battlefield to the commander. The green dot hidden 3 kilometers away from the town was Fishbone Base's light infantry. The 5 tigers were scattered behind buildings, only exposing the electromagnetic cannon. The vehicle was also covered with white cloth, which camouflaged the vehicle perfectly with the snow. This only left the pitch-black cannon visible. The red dots signaled were enemy units marked out by the sniper, while the gray dots were civilians. The thick smoke rising from the ground was the truck destroyed by the helicopter cannon. The anti-air machine gun had yet to unleash its power before being blown up into metal shards. The mutated humans who lost their air defense began to flee. Jiang Chen observed the battlefield. It was like playing a game. Also worth mentioning, the command system attached to the helicopter was the masterpiece of Yao Yao. The purpose of civilization is to punish the primal brutality. As if it was meant to rebuttal the clamor, Jiang Chen mustered to himself. Since the Grim Reaper has already arrived on the battlefield, then you bastards must go die. He coldly overwatched the fleeing figures on the screen as his finger pointed at the red dot on the screen. Whoosh dash. The trident-shaped cannon began to flash a faint blue electric light, followed by a screeching homing noise. The orange arc smashed to the ground. The noise of the bomb breaking the sound barrier almost covered the screaming northern wind. Chapter 179, Smite. The orange arc explosion penetrated the cloud-shaped sound barrier. Followed by the explosive homing, the cylinder-shaped bomb rapidly spun, just like God smiting the sins in the world. It smashed directly into the fleeing mutated humans. Boom! Snow knee-deep blew up into the air and mixed with shattered soft lead debris as it rained down onto the surrounding area. Without the need for explosives and just using pure mechanical power, the 10 kilograms bomb blew up in the enemy's base. Soft lead-made bombs allowed the bomb to break into thumb-sized pieces and scatter under the heavy air pressure. This instantly blew the mutated humans nearby away like paper. The concrete wall nearby completely collapsed. The debris 10 meters away even left bowl-sized holes on the wall. F***CK, what is that damn thing? Wang Pin struggled to stand up from the snow. He lifted his blood-filled face and frightenedly stared at the black dot in the sky. Luke was already dead. He saw the head meters away from the body. The poor guy had his neck blow off by debris as his entire head was severed from his body. It's a helicopter. Damn it, why would looting townspeople be here? The mutated human hiding behind the barrier raised his binoculars as he said with a trembling voice. Looting town? When he heard the word, Wang Pin instant felt a chill overwhelm his body. His limbs felt cold. Without hesitation, he got up and ran for his life to the concrete-made barrier. Based on rumors, on the wasteland near Wanghai City, only humans on the aircraft carrier inherited flight units before the war. But why would they show up here while they were located hundreds of kilometers away? Boom! The deafening blast ended his thought as the snow and debris covered him. The bomb didn't just come from the sky. It also came from the horizon. As if it was an agreement, 5 arcs smashed into the mutated human base like iron fists. The half-completed reinforced concrete wall was instantly shattered into pieces. As the pieces of concrete flew backward, the mutated humans taking cover behind it all dropped to the ground. The ones yet to be killed crawled into the town. Although the electromagnetic cannon used 5 kilograms bombs, it was not inferior compared to the strike from the dome. God, please stop. Crawling into the corner of a room and covering his head, a mutated human roared with a whimpering voice. The rifle along with his arrogance were all thrown into the snow. D*mit, where is the anti-air cannon? We dash. Under the far fire range, the mutated humans' machine guns were like toys. The only purpose of their shouting was to unleash the fear in their hearts. The occasion bomb that flew to Fishbone Base's side smashed into the building used as cover without any accuracy. However, on the Fishbone Base side, with the guidance of snipers as well as aerial coverage, the 5 Tiger fired simultaneously and accurately, eliminating the mutated humans' firepower and shattering their morale. Someone seems to be using rifles to shoot at us. Jiang Chen looked at the screen and smiled. His finger lightly drew on the screen as he circled a few red dots. Debris flew up as the red dots were blown up to pieces by the bombs. Only that anti-air machine gun is a bit threatening. Even if the assault rifle bullets could hit this far, the airflow would make it lose its accuracy. Chunan laughed, initiated automatic hovering, and moved his hands away from the controls. Oh? Jiang Chen answered absent-mindedly, his eyes were focused on the red dots on the screen. He then pressed his finger on the guy covering his head and ducking into the snow. Although those monstrous humans did not deserve mercy, the apathetic feeling of killing people through a screen still shocked him. Oh right, correction. They were not human. Speaking of something else, how's that wife of yours? Jiang Chen dragged his finger on the green dots and pointed on the location of the road. After receiving the command, 20-something light infantries began to move to the target location. He then pointed a few more times on the screen, and the other 20 light infantries crossed the barriers, pushing forward to the target area through the front. Not bad, Chunan answered concisely as he didn't seem to want to continue on the topic. Oh. Even if he accepted, his heart must not feel so great. Jiang Chen didn't ask further. Over half of the mutated humans stationed in Xinjiang town were eliminated. The remaining ones were under the heavy fire suppression of the electromagnetic cannon. The steel plate in front of their chests could block bullets, but when the bullets changed to electromagnetic cannons, it was as good as paper. While maintaining fire suppression, the two squads of light infantry quickly captured the mutated humans hiding in the barriers. As to the mutated humans still reluctant to give up, merciless cannons awaited them. Beep! A screeching alarm began to sound. What's that noise? Jiang Chen frowned. What else could it be? RPG, flying sword, anti-air missile. The mutated humans probably dug it up from a pack armory, Chunan said casually as he simultaneously pressed a button beside the control panel. Click. Within the vision of the tablet, a few flashing sparks began to fall. The approaching anti-air missile directly hit one of the rebels and scathed by the helicopter. Electromagnetic lure. These things that chase after high-frequency electronic devices are easy to deal with. The anti-air machine gun is more reliable. Chunan laughed contemptuously as he put his hands behind his head and sank further into the chair. Jiang Chen pointed his finger at the guy reloading the RPG, but Jiang Chen didn't use electromagnetic cannons this time. Instead, he commanded the infantry to attack him. He was very interested in the anti-air missile. If he could seize it, why would he destroy it? Chang Weiguo leaned tightly against the cover as he checked the coordinates on the EP. Then he signaled the team on the other side to throw a smoke bomb as they quickly pushed further into the town. An unfair battle. With the firepower advantage, the mutated humans' muscles and their strength in numbers were not worth mentioning. They already crossed their defensive structure. At this point, his force still maintained 0 casualties. Pointing the rifle out of cover, Chang Weiguo aimed at the mutated human, with half of his body exposed carrying the RPG, and pulled the trigger. Tata! The bullets instantly forced the mutated human to take cover and shredded more of the already in shambles concrete wall into pieces. The soldiers on the other wing quickly rushed in, just like how they were trained in exercise. The gunshots afar began to disappear. The force attacking from the side already controlled the south area of the town. The battle in the east should also be over. Chang Weiguo tugged at the thick scarf around his neck. His beard covered with ice shards, he breathed out a few white puffs. Team A attack the town center and control the warehouse. Team B follow the boundary to clear out the area. Team C take control of the captives. Move. Yes, sir. The synced roar echoed within the communication channel. Chang Weiguo put the rifle on his arm, looked up at the black dot in the sky, and he saluted. But at this time, the snow beside him suddenly moved as he immediately pointed the gun at the pile. He maintained shooting position as he slowly moved to cover, using his feet to remove the snow. It was a face. The boy feebly looked at him with a bruise printed on his face. Seeing this, Chang Weiguo quickly kneeled down, used the handle of the gun to sweep the snow off of him, and dragged him out from the snow. Save my mom. Looking at the boy's face, the feeling of yet to extinct justice made him feel enraged. Where is she? He held onto the boy's hand and said firmly. There. The boy faintly pointed at the pile of snow on the side. Chang Weiguo put him on a concrete bag as he carried the gun and traversed through the snow to the pile. He dug through the snow and found a man. He was slightly shocked, but soon saw the woman below the man. The woman's body was exposed, her hair messy. Her breathing was faint as if she could lose her life at any second. The man on top of her already lost his breath. The soft lead debris penetrated his body. The shattered glasses was covered in blood. At the moment, Chang Weiguo didn't understand the relationship between them, especially when he saw that there was another man under her. Regardless, saving her life was more important. He dragged the already dead man out of the snow. Chang Weiguo then helped the sandwiched woman up. It's all over. Your son is beside you. But in an instant, the woman's eyes became widened as she stared at something behind him. Suddenly alerted, Chang Weiguo hugged the woman and rolled onto the ground. Dong dash. A steel beam pierced the location he previously stood in as it deeply penetrated into the concrete bag. The blood-covered Wang Pin stared at Chang Weiguo in rage as he leaped towards him roaring. Without hesitation, he raised his gun, and the rifle unleashed its power on the mutated human's chest as blood began to splatter. But the mutated human did not back down as he took the bullets and pushed Chang Weiguo onto the ground. Roar dash. The mutated human clenched onto the Reaper assault rifle, attempting to take it from Chang Weiguo's hands. Chang Weiguo tightly clenched his teeth, his face entirely red. Obviously, he was no match for the mutated human's strength as the gun began to move in the mutated human's direction. Seeing he could not outmatch the mutated human's strength, he immediately let go. Because of the sudden jerk, Wang Pin's body immediately tilted up with the rifle. Grasping onto the opportunity, Cheng Weigua swiftly grabbed the dagger on his leg and swung it at Wang Pin's throat. The dagger flashed through his blood began to splash all over the ground. Wang Pin dropped the rifle onto the ground as he covered his throat, pouring out blood. His mouth was open, but he couldn't say a word. He could only use the blood and his widened eyes to show his disbelief and bitterness. Grabbing the rifle on the ground, Cheng Weigua, without hesitation, pressed the gun to his forehead and pulled the trigger. There was more blood. Wang Pin's shoulder loosened as he fell backward, deep into the thick snow. At the same time, the woman's shoulder began to loosen up too. Alive, kneeled on the ground, she leaned her face against the snow pile beside her. She couldn't feel the coldness on her face anymore. Chapter 180, Colony. The battle ended swiftly, completely in contrast with the stalemate they were in when they encountered the mutated humans last time. The 30 infantries, who entered the town, did not suffer any casualties, and only one unlucky guy was shot in the leg by a recalcitrant mutated human. The bullet happened to pass through his artery. Although the blood gushing out was quite frightening, the combat medic was quick to rescue, and the man was no longer in a life-threatening condition. A total of 35 mutated humans were killed, including 29 who died from electromagnetic pulse cannon and 6 of which died from assault rifle and sniper attacks. 5 were captured, and although mutated humans would rarely take the humiliation of being captured by a human lying down, under that overwhelming firepower, instinctive fear prevailed over the ridiculous pride. A total of 721 human captives were rescued. If the bodies outside the town were all dead, the population of the town should be 779 before the mutated humans came. There were bullet holes the size of a bowl throughout the exterior buildings outside of the town, and collapsed concrete buildings could be seen everywhere. Half of which were destroyed by the mutated humans. The Fishbone Base infantry maintained the order of the queue as they recorded all the rescued townspeople and then provide them with the nutrient supply that originally belonged to them. The 5 Tigers didn't drive into the city but stopped at the bridgehead of Zhufeng Highway. A few soldiers were carrying concrete bags to build 5 crude bunkers. This move was very intriguing. All the Xinjiang townspeople had one thought hovering in their mind: do these people want to stay here? They had a sense of foreboding. Type 51 helicopter landed about a half-kilometer away from the town in an open space. Jiang Chen, clad in kinetic skeletons, jumped down from the top. Cheng Weigua, along with the mayor of the town, greeted Jiang Chen and saluted after seeing him. Did you finish the census? Jiang Chen cut to the chase. It's done. Cheng Weigua handed a tablet to Jiang Chen for him to check. Jiang Chen swiped the screen while he perused the statistics. Population, 721, captive mutated humans, 5. Seized, 24 machine guns, 72 various models of rifles, 100,000 rounds of bullets, 1 shoulder-launched missile, 5 surface-to-air missiles, 5 recoilless cannons, and 40 rounds of ammunition. And there were 40 sets of C-type steel armors, though most of them were destroyed in the explosion. Looking at these batches of firearms, Jiang Chen was secretly stunned. Oh boy, these firearms reserves could catch up with the entire assets of the Fishbone Base. It could be seen that these mutated humans invested a lot in this outpost, but now all of these belonged to Jiang Chen. These firearms would remain here, but he ordered the armors to be shipped back. Although these lumps of irons were of little value to humans, nevertheless it's still pretty good to reforge them. Fishbone Base could use more C-type steels. With about 10 tons of steel, however, modifying them into 2 armored vehicles wouldn't be a problem. In addition, there were also hundreds of preserved mutants' cadavers which appeared to be the food of mutated humans, since only they could eat something this toxic. However, so as not to waste anything, Jiang Chen still ordered Cheng Weigua to throw these into the organic extractor to produce some nutrient supplies. With the ratio of 1 mutant to 100 nutrient supplies, it could easily extract 10,000 nutrient supplies. Including the 30,000 in the storage, he temporarily did not have to worry about the rations of more than 700 people. What excited him most was the construction materials that he seized. The mutated humans left a huge amount of cement and steels in the warehouse which were originally used to build an outpost, but right now, they were in his hands. With these batches of prefabricated construction materials, Jiang Chen could easily stretch out reinforced concrete defensive line along the shore. He returned the tablet to Cheng Weigua, said a few words, and the latter received the order at once and left. Then Jiang Chen finally turned to look at the mayor, who had been standing there, and smiled amiably at him. Seeing that Jiang Chen was looking at him, the mayor quickly bowed. The Honorable Fishbone Base leader, Mr. Jiang Chen, on behalf of all the survivors in Xinjiang town, I would like to express our utmost gratitude and sincerity to you. Don't worry about it, do tell, what's your name? Ding Bin. Okay, Mr. Dangbin, I want to go to the town hall now. Do you have time to take me there? My pleasure. Dangbin bowed again. To be honest, as the mayor, their savior's behavior after eliminating the mutated humans made him very uneasy. At the moment, however, they were wielding guns, and the entire military power of the town was wiped out after the onslaught of mutated humans. Not possessing confidence nor knowing what to say, he could only meekly follow Jiang Chen on the side. With hands in his pocket, Jiang Chen looked at the surrounding buildings while walking on the road leading to the town hall. The reek of blood lingered in the nose and did not fade away even after a long time. Along the way, he didn't say anything, which actually made Dangbin somewhat uncertain. After hesitating for a moment, Dangbin looked at Jiang Chen and asked tentatively, "In just 3 days, they already slaughtered more than 60 of us. Truly grateful to you, us survivors from Qingpu. If there is anything we can help you with, we'll do our absolute best." I've already said not to worry about it. Jiang Chen, however, didn't directly answer. Instead, he only responded in a brief sentence before no longer speaking. While Dangbin's heart was still apprehensive, the two had arrived in front of the town hall. To his surprise, the leader of the mysterious organization didn't seem to have the intention to go in, rather, he just stood in front of the town hall. Did it deserve to be called a government building? It was aesthetically built, and based on the damage, it could be considered the only intact building in the entire town. Say, was there a person called Lin Chaoan who came to your place before? Dangbin was a bit stunned for a moment, as he didn't expect Jiang Chen would suddenly ask this irrelevant question. Frowning, he tried to recall carefully and answered, "There seems to be someone like that. He came from Jia City." "Did he not say anything to you? Like how the mutated humans would be here?" Jiang Chen asked casually. Looking blankly at Jiang Chen, Dang Binyao shook his head and said, "No, he only stayed in our town for a night before leaving hastily." "Hadn't said anything? That's extremely odd. If they desperately wanted to prevent the mutated humans from invading Wanghai City, there is no reason not to alert the people here, so that they can make early preparations. Or at the very least, build some defensive structures." Jiang Chen slightly knitted his brows as he carefully scrutinized Dang Bin's eyes. "It doesn't seem like he's pretending at all. How did you remember him? What I mean is there anything special about him that made you take a closer look at him?" There was one. Because the people passing through Zhufeng Highway were usually lone travelers from Jia Cty, they come here to dig a few components or microchips from military equipment. These things would sell well anywhere in the mainland. The worst-case scenario is that they would go to Luding Town to buy a few boxes of canned fish to sell when they returned, and then the price could at least double. However, only Lin Chaoan came back empty-handed. Has he only been here once? Yes, he seemed to have taken another route when he went to Wanghai City. Nodding thoughtfully, Jiang Chen became lost in thought. Dang Bin, standing on the side, was trying to figure out the expression on Jiang Chen's face but couldn't manage to read the slightest useful information. He couldn't understand why Jiang Chen would suddenly ask about the lone travelers. Was there any deeper meaning in this? While he was speculating, Jiang Chen spoke again, but this time it was to ask a different question. "Let's talk about something else. What do you do to earn a living?" More than 700 people were not a small number. It's not the city center, so there were not enough zombies to provide organic matter that could be used to extract nutrient supply. Although there were quite a number of mutants here, they were usually powerful. If they ever hunted mutants, they didn't exactly look like a well-equipped group of survivors. "We planted some crops on the farms outside the town to extract nutrient supplies." Dangbin looked at Jiang Chen in the eyes and said cautiously. The fruit of the mutant plants could not be eaten, but it could be used as an excellent raw material for the extraction of nutrient supplies. Many survivors in Qingpu would also plant such crops on the roof and go to the 6th Street to exchange for crystals or nutrient supplies. "Oh? What is the degree of soil contamination here? What about the radiation?" Seeing that Jiang Chen seemed to be showing no interest in the nutrient supply in the warehouse, Dangbin felt slightly relieved and muttered, "It seems to be 9 and 20. With regards to this, he didn't have to lie about it. The two numbers were easy to measure. The radiation value could be measured by EP, and the soil contamination would only require to take a sample and then to drop 2 drops of reagent. 9? Very good. Jiang Chen suddenly laughed and then reached out and patted Dangbin on the shoulder. "From this day onwards, you'll be in charge of the farm." Dangbin paused while looking completely dumbfounded. He couldn't understand the meaning behind his words. "Farm? Me?" Jiang Chen smiled, looked at him and said, "That's right, who else would it be?" Swallowing his saliva, Dangbin was still bewildered and asked, "If you want those mutated fruits, we are willing to pay tribute to you." Those things were not worth money at all, and not to mention the price of organic matter was declining. Even with the price 2 months ago, 1 ton of fruit could only extract 100 nutrient supplies, which could be exchanged for 10 crystals. The Reaper rifle alone in their hands was worth 20. Thus, they didn't need to care about the small profit. Jiang Chen raised his hand to interrupt him. You misunderstood me, we don't care about those rotten fruits that you planted. It was the truth, Fishbone Base didn't need nutrient supply. Then you mean? Am I still not direct enough? Former mayor, I need you to take care of my farm for me. There were 2 words Jiang Chen emphasized, and they were former mayor and my. Upon hearing this, Dang Bin's face instantly paled, his eyes widened. You want to occupy our homes, you can't do. But we can, the mutated humans are going to cross this river, and I will prevent that from happening, and so we're here. But all of them are dead now. Dang Bin had difficulty speaking. Jiang Chen looked strangely at Dang Bin, he smiled and said, Are we having a misunderstanding here? You think we are here on a special trip to rescue you? I am sorry to tell you, but we are only fighting against the mutated humans. And this place is only the outpost I captured from them. Moreover, in accordance with the rules of the wasteland, since I saved you, you are all my captives. Dang Bin's lips trembled and couldn't utter a single word. His previous thought was they were saved, but in the end, it was just a change of ownership. Seeing that he had no reaction, Jiang Chen could also not care any less. They will be back. Furthermore, there would be more of them, but I will defend here. Stamping his foot, he pointed towards the ground beneath his foot. And from now on, this is my colony.